The date is 12/31/2020. My name is Nug, and this is your nightly recap. I'm going to start today talking about the Hornets and Mavs game. It was a little bit surprising to me last night. Hornets went for 118, and the Mavs only had 99. The Hornets actually have shown me that they could possibly contend for a playoff spot in the East, which isn't saying a whole lot, but it would be nice for the Hornets to be back in that. Um, Rozier had a decent night at 18 points, 5 rebounds, and 3 assists. But the real story for the Hornets was their bench squad of LaMelo Ball and Bridges. Bridges had 20 points and 16 rebounds, which is good as a starter, so off the bench that was great for them. And LaMelo Ball had a breakout performance. I'd say that he looked really good last night. 22 points, 8 rebounds, and 5 assists. And I think he was going 3 for 4 from three, which is pretty good. If he can keep that up, we'll forget about that first performance a little bit with the 0 points. But for him, that was his best night so far. So we'll see if he can keep that up. For the Mavs, kind of a lackluster night. Luka only had 12 points, and the other scoring options just weren't enough. 18 from Hardaway Jr. That was a good game for him. Nobody else showed up though. Kleba off the bench. Kleba had 12. Jalen Brunson had 16, but it just wasn't enough. The Hornets got at it defensively. You got Rozier. Devontae Graham's not a horrible defender. I'm pretty sure Rozier would have been the one on Luka that really kept him quiet. So if the Hornets can play like that, they got a lot of stuff they can do. But they don't have a lot. They can make the playoffs, is what I'm trying to get at. So we'll see. Let me flip the page here. All right. Now, a game I watched yesterday, I thought that was the game I picked. I usually watch one, maybe two a day. Was the Nets and the Hawks. The Nets beat the Hawks 145 to 141. Durant had 33 points, 11 rebounds, and 8 assists. Kyrie had 25 points, 6 assists, and 2 steals. And Joe Harris had 23 points with 6 three-pointers. And the Nets, off their bench, had 4 players in double figures. The Nets just looked very good. They were all together. Durant almost a triple-double. He's only 2 assists off of it. He just looked like he could not be stopped. They didn't really have... I mean, they got Torian Prince is on the Nets. Never mind. They don't really have too many good wing defenders. Reddish and Hunter are getting there, but they're not fully there yet. For the Hawks to guard Durant, but it was still close relatively with what they had. Kyrie kind of turned it on in the second half. His first half was kind of okay. I was kind of surprised. I had him on one of my lineups for FanDuel, and he was kind of lackluster in the first half. But he picked it up in the second half. And Harris he was hitting he went 6 for 8, so just about anything he touched went in. Now for the Hawks, Trae Young had 30 points, 6 rebounds, and 11 assists. Collins had 30 points and 10 rebounds, and Reddish had 20 points. And off the bench, Bogdanovich gave them 22. It just wasn't enough, but it does show that this Hawks team has a lot to look forward to on the upside. It shows that they can contend with the top team in the East and or top team in the league, for that fact. But the Hawks have shown, like I said, that they can keep up with just about anybody. Trey's playing at least all-star level. I mean, he's not going to get any MVP nods, but he is the most valuable player on this team. Collins looks like he's worth a little bit more than they were trying to give him, a little over. I think they were trying to give him like a 4-year, $90 million. He looks like he's closer to 100, 110 kind of guy. So he'll get a bigger contract and free agency next year. Reddish has really came into his own. Anybody watched him in high school or watched him? Actually, Duke wasn't the best showcase of his skills, but high school, people knew that he could put up points. I mean, it's high school, but when you're dropping 50, in high school, you should at least be able to get it where he got now at the 20-point mark in the NBA. Reddish can score. Reddish can defend. Reddish has a good skill set. He's about 6'8", 6'10". I think he's closer to 6'8", though. Um, and he's got the whole package. If he can pull that together, Reddish is going to be one of the top small forwards in the league. But we've as slowly he's edging towards it. We'll see. I think next year will be a big year for him. I think you'll start to kind of see it this year, but really have a lot of faith in Reddish going forward that he'll be a good piece for that Hawks team. But the last laugh went to the Nets last night. Very good game for the Nets. Dinwiddie did hurt, but it looks like they've got some guys off the bench that should help, like Shamet, Landry Shamet from the Clippers. Should be good for them. Let's move on to the Lakers Spurs game. The final score was 121 to 107. The game wasn't that impressive. But one thing that I have to acknowledge is LeBron on his birthday becomes the first person to score 10 points in 1,000 games. Just shows his longevity and his ability to constantly be a factor. I'm sure this won't be the last milestone he hits on in records wise, just all across the board, some sort of record. So yeah, but good for him and happy birthday to him. Now let's move on to the Heat versus Bucks. The final score was 115 Heat to 108 Bucks. Giannis had a really good game, 26 points, 13 rebounds, 10 assists, and 3 steals. But his teammates did not come through for him this time. Middleton going 0 for 4 from 3 and having only 8 points. Holiday having 13 points. DiVincenzo having 15. And that was not nearly the production that they had the other day when they were just hitting everything. Giannis had little to no help last night. And if I'm going to be honest, the way they beat the Heat the time before was to rely on those other guys more than they relied on Giannis. But with them not shooting, they had to go back to Giannis. And that's probably the best game Giannis has had against the Heat in a while, so that's good to see. But, I mean, if you got no help and the bench isn't really there either, you're kind of up the creek. But for the Heat, Hero at point guard has been really good for them this year. I wasn't expecting them to do that, but they did like to have Hero out there, and with Duncan Robinson starting as well, they kind of couldn't bring them in at the same time. Prior with Hero not playing point, but now with Hero playing point, he's had 21 points and he had the most rebounds out of anybody on either team with 15. Lopez should have been on top of that. Brook Lopez, the center for the Bucks, he only had 8 rebounds, and this guy almost doubled his rebounds, and he's a point guard, so that's got to be helped a little bit. He needs to be on the boards. Adebayo had 22, 8 rebounds, and 10 assists. Good game for him. 2 off a triple-double. Avery Bradley had a decent game. 16 points, 1 steal. Not too bad for him. It's nice to see him back on the floor playing. We haven't seen him since prior to the bubble because he decided to opt out of the bubble. So, yeah, but that was good. And they had no Jimmy Butler and were still able to beat the Heat. It would have been interesting to see what Jimmy would have done in either of these games because he had the one game, I think his second game of the season, 7 steals, which is, I assume, a Heat record, but that is insane. Off the bench for the Heat, Dragic had 26 points, and Olynyk had 15 points and 8 rebounds. Just too much for the Bucks. They had the first half lead, but were not able to keep it together. The second half, the Heat with Dragic and Olynyk off the bench really pushed at them, and they just had no answer because their starters were fairly cold besides Giannis. And that's what led to the demise of the Bucks last night. Now, is this the end for the Bucks? No, they'll find another They'll have other matchups that are more fixed to their style of play. They can play better. The Heat just have the Bucks number. Wow. Okay, it's early. All right. For the Bucks, they better hope that they don't get Miami in their side of the bracket come playoff time. Because Miami's good, but they've lost to other teams. They just know how to play the Bucks. So we'll have to see how this goes. Bucks will bounce back. They had a good. I mean, they did pull one game off, but that was just a really good shooting night. But yeah, that's gonna end it today. If you didn't like anything I said today, feel free to comment. I'd be willing to give my opinion and go back and think about what I said in that way if you think I should think differently on a certain topic. But other than that, please drop a like, please subscribe, and I'll try to throw another one of these out tomorrow. Thank you for watching.